The rusted spine of the Orion Rim felt less like a frontier and more like a graveyard where ambitions went to die. The air in the orbital dockyards of Station 7 tasted of recycled oxygen and metallic decay, a flavor Jace Rowan had grown uncomfortably familiar with over the last 5 years. He adjusted the collar of his worn flight jacket, keeping his head low as he navigated the labyrinth of docking clamps and pressurized walkways. Jace was a man composed of sharp angles and sharper regrets. Once he had been the youngest lead navigator in the history of the Interplanetary Merchant Guild, a prodigy capable of threading a dreadnought through an asteroid field with his eyes closed. Now, he was a ghost with a revoked license and a bank account that hovered dangerously close to zero. He stopped before Bay 94. Inside the magnetic containment field sat a ship that looked like it had been chewed up by a singularity and spat out the other side. It was a retrofitted hauler, the hull plating scarred by micrometeoroids, and the paint peeling to reveal the gray primer beneath. The name Starhound's Echo was stenciled on the prow in fading white letters. It was ugly. It was obsolete. It was perfect. "She is a beauty, is she not?" The voice came from behind him. Jace turned to see the shipbroker, a sweaty man named Grix, who smelled of cheap synthetic tobacco and desperation. Grix was wiping his hands on a greasy rag, his eyes darting around the dock, as if he expected the station authorities to raid the place at any second. "Beauty is a strong word," Jace said, his voice raspy from disuse. "She looks like she would fall apart if I sneezed in the engine room." Grix waved the rag dismissively. "Aesthetics are for tourists, Mr. Rowan. You want a ship with good bones, a ship that flies under the radar. The Starhound has a Class 3 hyperdrive reinforced cargo hold, and her signature is so low, even the Meridian Circle patrols would mistake her for space debris. And for the price, you are robbing me." Jace narrowed his eyes. 150,000 credits is not robbery. It is my entire life savings, plus the settlement money from the accident. He hated calling it an accident. It was a massacre. But calling it a massacre out loud was a good way to get a black bag thrown over his head. 140, Grix corrected, quickly pulling a data pad from his belt. "I knocked 10,000 off because I like your face, and because I need the berth cleared by 1800 hours today. The harbor master is charging me by the hour." Jace looked at the ship again. Deep in the base of his skull, he felt a familiar itch. It was a sensation like static electricity, a low hum that had nothing to do with his ears and everything to do with the anomaly in his frontal cortex. He was a resonant navigator. The Meridian Circle called people like him deviants. The scientific journals called them statistical anomalies. In reality, Jace could feel the curvature of space-time the way a sailor felt the wind. He could sense the slipstreams and the gravity wells that ship sensors took minutes to calculate. It was the gift that had made him a legend, and the curse that had made him a target. Right now, the Starhound's echo was not singing to him, but it was humming. A low, steady thrum of potential energy that felt strangely distinct from the cold metal of the other ships in the dock. It felt warm. "Why is it so cheap, Grix?" Jace asked, looking the broker in the eye. "And do not tell me it is out of the kindness of your heart. You would sell your own mother for a spare power coupling." Grix laughed nervously. "It is an estate sale. The previous owner passed away. No next of kin. I just wanted a quick liquidation. Look, do you want the ship or not? I have another buyer coming in at 1900 hours." It was a lie. Jace knew it was a lie. But he also knew that he had no other options. The Meridian Circle had blacklisted him from every reputable shipyard from here to Earth. If he wanted to clear his name, if he wanted to find the proof that Director Cade Marrow had ordered the destruction of Convoy 4 Alpha, he needed a ship. He needed independence. "I will take it," Jace said. Grix practically shoved the data pad into Jace's hands. "Standard liability waiver. No refunds. No returns. Sold as is. Sign at the bottom." Jace thumbed the biometric scanner. The device beeped, flashing green. "Transfer complete," Grix said, looking relieved enough to collapse. He tossed a heavy magnetic keycard to Jace. "She is all yours, Captain. Good luck. You are going to need it." Before Jace could ask for the maintenance logs, Grix had already turned and was speedwalking toward the exit, vanishing into the steam and shadows of the dockyard. Jace stood alone on the gantry, the heavy keycard warm in his hand. He looked up at his ship. "Well," he muttered to himself, "better to die in space than rot on a station." He walked across the boarding ramp, the metal groaning under his boots. He swiped the keycard, and the airlock hissed open with a sound like a dying gasp. Jace stepped inside, bracing himself for the smell of stale air and hydraulic fluid. Instead, he was hit by the scent of blooming chamomile and ozone. He paused, blinking. The airlock cycled shut behind him, sealing out the noise of the dockyard. The silence that followed was heavy, but not empty. Jace moved forward into the main corridor. The floor plates here were not rusted. They were covered in thick, woven mats with intricate geometric patterns. The harsh, fluorescent strip lighting standard on these haulers had been replaced by warm, amber globs that floated near the ceiling, casting a soft glow. "Hello," Jace called out. His hand instinctively drifted to the stun baton clipped to his belt. "Is anyone aboard?" No answer. He moved deeper into the ship. The galley was spotless. A ceramic pot sat on the burner, steam still rising from the spout. There were cups on the table, 3 of them. They were oversized, far too large for a human hand to hold comfortably. Jace frowned. Grix had said the owner was dead. He had not mentioned squatters. He reached the door to the crew quarters. The itch in his head spiked, the resonance becoming a vibration that rattled his teeth. Something powerful was on the other side of this door. Something that bent space just by existing. He took a breath, gripped his baton, and hit the door release. The panel slid open. Jace stopped dead. His brain tried to process the visual data and failed, resulting in a long, awkward stare. The crew quarters had been converted into a den. The bunks were pushed together and covered in mounds of pillows and silks. And lounging on those pillows were 3 of the most terrifyingly beautiful creatures Jace had ever seen. They were huge. Even sitting down, their height was imposing. They looked humanoid, but only in the vaguest sense. Their bodies were covered in thick, luxurious fur, the color of a dying sun, deep crimsons and burnt oranges. Their ears were long and tapered, twitching at the sound of the door opening. But it was the tails that held Jace's attention. Great sweeping plumes of fur, 3 or 4 to each of them, waving lazily behind them like fluid fire. Kitsari. Jace had heard stories of the fox people of the Proxima sector, but he had never seen one. They were reclusive, rare, and rumored to be extinct in civilized space. And there were 3 of them in his bedroom. 6 golden eyes locked onto him. The air in the room seemed to increase in pressure. The one in the center was the largest. She sat with a regal posture that made Jace feel like he should be bowing. Her fur was a darker shade of red, almost burgundy, and her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and utterly unimpressed. To her left was a slightly smaller Kitsari, with bright, fiery orange fur and goggles perched on her forehead. She was tinkering with a handheld datapad, her tails twitching with nervous energy. To the right sat the third, her fur a softer pale russet. She looked calmer, her hands folded in her lap, radiating a sense of stillness that contrasted with the others. Jace cleared his throat. He realized he was still holding the stun baton and slowly lowered it, feeling ridiculous. Jace started, his voice cracking. He tried again. "I bought this ship." The large one in the center tilted her head. "We know." Her voice was rich and deep, like a cello played in a cavern. It carried a resonance that made Jace's skull vibrate. "Grix sold it to me," Jace continued, feeling the need to justify his presence. "Just now, 10 minutes ago." "We know," the one with the goggles said, not looking up from her screen. "We monitored the transaction. You overpaid by 12% considering the hyperdrive stabilizer is misaligned. Neri, the center one warned softly. What? Neri snapped, looking up. Her snout wrinkled. He did. And his heart rate is 120 beats per minute. He is terrified. I am not terrified, Jace lied. I am confused. Why are there 3 giant? He gestured vaguely at them. Why are you on my ship? Your ship, the quiet one on the right spoke. Her voice was like a breeze through dry leaves. That is a complicated assertion. Jace looked at their tails again. They were mesmerizing. Nice tails, he blurted out. Immediately he wanted to open the airlock and space himself. Nice tails. Who said that to a 7-foot-tall alien warrior? Neri snorted a sound that was suspiciously like a laugh. The quiet one, Sari, smiled gently. But the leader, the dark red one, did not smile. She stood up. Jace took an involuntary step back. She kept rising. She had to be over 2 meters tall. She towered over him, her shadow consuming the doorway. She stepped over the pillows and stopped just inches from him. He could smell cinnamon and static charge radiating off her. She looked down at him, her golden eyes dissecting his soul. I am Vexa, she said. This is Nairi, our engineer, and Sari, our life mender. Jace, he managed. Jace Rowan. Vexa nodded once, as if confirming a calculation. She reached into the folds of her robe and pulled out a datapad, a copy of the sale contract he had just signed. You read the terms, Jace Rowan. Mostly, Jace said defensively. The dealer was in a hurry. Vexa tapped a paragraph near the bottom of the document, a section written in dense legalese that Jace had skimmed over. Article 7, Section 4, Vexa read. The vessel Starhound's Echo is sold as a fully integrated unit including all biological and non-biological navigation interfaces currently residing within the hull. Jace frowned. Biological interfaces, I thought that meant the biorecyclers in the life support. It does not, Vexa said. She lowered the pad and looked him dead in the eye. It means us, Jace stared at her. You come with the ship. Incorrect, Vexa said. The ship comes with us. We are the engines, Jace Rowan. We are the shields. Without us, this pile of metal is drifting debris. I do not understand, Jace said, his mind racing. I bought a ship. I did not buy passengers. We are not passengers, Vexa declared. Her tails flared out behind her, filling the small corridor with a wall of red fur. And there is one more condition you failed to notice. She pointed to the bottom line right above where his digital signature now glowed. Condition of ownership. The purchaser agrees to assume the role of anchor guardian for the resonant biological components. Anchor guardian, Jace repeated. What does that mean? Vexa crossed her arms. In your language, the translation is crude, but it is binding. Refund not allowed. Husband required. The silence that followed was absolute. Jace felt the blood drain from his face. Husband, he whispered. Required, Nairi chirped from the bed. It is the law. Look it up. I am not marrying 3 alien foxes, Jace shouted, his voice echoing down the corridor. This is insane. I am going back to Grix. I am getting my money back. He turned on his heel and marched toward the airlock. Try, Vexa said calmly. Jace reached the airlock and slammed his hand on the control panel. Access denied. Lockdown initiated. Open, Jace yelled, punching the override. Access denied. Nairi changed the encryption codes 3 minutes ago. Vexa's voice came from right behind him. She moved silently for someone so large. As I said, no refund. Jace spun around his back against the cold metal of the airlock door. This is kidnapping, or hijacking, or both. It is survival, Sari said, stepping up beside Vexa. Her expression was painful. Please, Jace Rowan, listen to us. Why should I listen to you? Jace demanded. You tricked me. You and that greasy broker. Grix knows nothing of us, Vexa said. He only knows that the ship refuses to fly for anyone who does not sign the anchor pact. He thinks it is a software glitch. He was desperate to sell because the ship had been eating his power grid while sitting idle. So why me? Jace asked. Why let me sign? Because you have the mark, Vexa said. She raised a clawed hand and pointed a finger at his forehead. We can hear it. The hum. You are resonant. Jace froze. His heart hammered against his ribs. I do not know what you are talking about. Do not lie, Vexa growled softly. We felt you the moment you stepped onto the dock. Your mind creates a wake in the void. You are like us, Jace slumped. There was no point denying it to creatures who could smell space-time distortions. Fine. I am resonant. So what that makes me a freak, not a husband. It makes you compatible, Neri said, hopping off the bed and joining them. She was shorter than Vexa, but still taller than Jace. She adjusted her goggles. The Starhound's Echo is not a normal ship. We retrofitted the drive core with Kitsari harmonics. It runs on thought, not just fuel, but raw resonant energy is volatile. If we try to jump without a stabilizer, we burn out. We need an anchor. Someone to hold the frame of reality steady while we weave the path. An anchor, Jace repeated. And that is the husband part. The bond is necessary, Sari explained gently. A psychic tether. The legal document calls it marriage because that is the closest human legal equivalent to a life bond pact. It grants us protection under your name. It grants you access to our power. And if I refuse? Jace asked. Vexa's face hardened. Then we leave. We will rip out the harmonic core, the stealth cloak, and the shield modulation. We will take our tech and vanish into the drift. You will be left with a hollow shell that cannot fly, cannot fight, and is worth less than the scrap metal it is made of. Jace closed his eyes. He saw his credit balance zero. He saw the face of Director Cade Marrow sneering at him from the news feeds. He saw the wreckage of Convoy 4 Alpha burning in the dark. If they left, he was ruined. He would be stuck on Station 7 begging for scraps, while the people who framed him lived like kings. But marriage, to 3 strangers. This is a trap, Jace muttered. It has to be a trap. Are you working for the Circle? Vexa laughed a bitter, sharp sound. The Meridian Circle. She pulled back the collar of her robe. Jace flinched. Burned into the fur and flesh of her shoulder was a barcode. A serial number. Asset 77 Beta. Property of Red Core Research. We are not their agents, Jace Rowan, Vexa hissed. We are their escaped laboratory rats. Jace stared at the scar. He knew that font. He knew that branding style. He had seen it on crates of illegal munitions he was supposed to ignore back when he was a captain. They used you, Jace realized. They chained us to the engines of Black Ops frigates, Vexa said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. They drugged us and forced us to push ships faster than light, burning our life force to save them fuel. We were batteries, living engines. We escaped 3 months ago, Neri added, her voice small. We stole this ship. We gutted it and made it ours. But we cannot run forever without an anchor. We are burning out. We saw your file, Sari said softly. When Grix listed the potential buyers, we hacked the guild database. You are the navigator who refused to fly the Kestrel route because the radiation shielding was insufficient for the crew. You were the one who filed the complaint against Marrow before the massacre. Jace looked at them. Really looked at them. He saw the fear beneath Vexa's arrogance. He saw the exhaustion in Neri's twitching tails. He saw the desperation in Sari's eyes. They were refugees. Just like him. They had been chewed up by the Meridian Circle and spat out. You are being hunted, Jace said. By the entire Third Fleet, Vexa confirmed. And I am a disgraced navigator with a bounty on my reputation, Jace said. If I help you, if I sign this, we are all walking targets. We are already targets, Vexa said. Together, we might be targets that can shoot back. Jace looked down at the deck. He thought about the empty apartment he had left behind. He thought about the silence of space that he missed more than anything. He looked up at Vexa. I have conditions. Vexa's ears perked up. Name them. 1, Jace said, holding up a finger. I am the captain. Absolute command of the vessel. We do not vote on course corrections in the middle of a firefight. You follow my lead. Vexa narrowed her eyes, considering. Agreed. In matters of navigation and combat, you lead. In matters of ship maintenance and internal welfare, we have a voice. Fair, Jace said. 2. This marriage is on paper only. It is a legal shield, a cover story. I do not expect, I do not want. He gestured awkwardly. You do not want to perform conjugal duties, Neri said bluntly. Jace flushed. Yes, exactly. We are a crew, partners, nothing else. I sleep in my bunk, you sleep in yours. Sari looked relieved. Neri looked indifferent. Vexa looked unreadable. Agreed, Vexa said. We seek safety, not a bedmate. 3, Jace said. 5 years. We have tried this for 5 years. If we haven't killed each other or been blown up by the circle by then, we dissolve the contract. You go your way, I go mine. Vexa hesitated. She glanced at her sisters. A silent communication passed between them, a flicker of ear twitches and tail movements. 5 years, Vexa said. She extended her hand. It was large, the pads of her fingers rough, the claws retracted but visible. Jace took her hand. It was warm and strong. 5 years, Jace repeated. Do not make me regret this. Refund not allowed, Vexa reminded him, her grip tightening slightly. Welcome home, husband, Jace shivered. Not from fear, but from the sudden, overwhelming surge of resonance that flooded his mind the moment their skin touched. It was like a dam breaking. He felt the ship. He felt the engine core purring 5 decks down. He felt Nairi's manic curiosity and Sari's soothing calm. And he felt Vexa. He felt a wall of iron will guarding a deep, dark well of sorrow. But beneath that sorrow, he felt something else. A calculation. A plan that she was not sharing. Jace pulled his hand back, breaking the connection. He rubbed his palm, staring at her. We have work to do, Jace said, his voice rougher than he intended. If we are going to leave before the harbor master impounds us, we need to prepare for launch. Neri has already prepped the core, Vexa said, turning back to the den. Sorry, get the medical bay ready. Our captain looks like he hasn't eaten a real meal in a month. I am fine, Jace protested. You are malnourished and your cortisol levels are critical, Sari said, gently moving past him toward the galley. I will make broth. Jace watched them move. They were taking over. They were already a unit, a machine, and he was just the new gear dropped into the mechanism. He walked to the viewport in the corridor and looked out at the grim metal of Station 7. He had come here looking for a tool to exact his revenge. Instead, he had bought a family of 7-foot-tall fugitive foxwomen. What have I done? Jace whispered to the stars. But as he felt the deck vibrate beneath his feet, humming in harmony with the itch in his skull for the first time in 5 years, Jace Rowan did not feel alone. He turned toward the bridge. The path ahead was dark, dangerous, and likely fatal. It was perfect. The first week aboard the Starhound's Echo was a lesson in controlled chaos. Jace quickly learned that living with 3 Kitsari was less like commanding a crew and more like trying to herd a thunderstorm. Neri was the loudest element. The engineer seemed to have a personal vendetta against silence. She spent 18 hours a day in the engine room or crawling through the maintenance ducts, constantly narrating her own work. The plasma coupling is skewed by 0.4 microns, her voice would echo through the ship's comm system. Who calibrated this blind monkey? Oh wait, it was a human. Same difference. I can hear you, Neri, Jace said into his headset. He was on the bridge, trying to decipher the navigation charts that Vexa had annotated in a language that looked like scratches on a tree bark. I know you can hear me, Captain Husband, Neri chirped back. That is why I said it. Also, do not touch the red button on the console. I rewired it to the coffee maker. Jace pulled his finger back from the red button, labeled emergency vent. Noted. Sari was the opposite. She moved so silently that Jace had nearly given himself a heart attack 3 times by turning around to find her standing directly behind him, holding a cup of green liquid. Drink, she would say softly. What is it? Nutrient density supplement with calming herbs. Your aura is jagged today. Jace would drink it. It tasted like grass and dirt, but his headaches were disappearing, and the tremor in his hands, a lingering side effect of the stress, was gone. Then, there was Vexa. Vexa did not joke like Neri. She did not mother him like Sari. Vexa watched him. She spent her time in the strategic planning room, or on the bridge, sitting in the auxiliary chair observing how he flew the ship. It was unnerving. Jace felt like a cadet under review. They had taken a contract to haul medical supplies to the outer colony of Boreas. It was a low-risk run, intended to test the ship's capabilities and their ability to work together. Your approach vector is inefficient, Vexa commented, as Jace guided the ship through a debris field. It is safe, Jace countered, keeping his hands steady on the yoke. We are carrying fragile isotopes. If I pull a high-G turn, we destabilize the cargo. The Meridian patrol routes scan this sector every 4 hours, Vexa said, pointing to the holographic map. If you take the long arc, we will intersect their window. I know the patrol schedules, Jace said. I wrote half of them when I was in the guild. Schedules change. Algorithms evolve, Vexa said. You fly like a merchant. Safe, predictable. Jace gritted his teeth. I fly like someone who wants to arrive alive. And do not forget I am the captain. You agreed. I agreed to follow your lead, Vexa said coolly. I did not agree to ignore your mediocrity. Jace slammed the thrusters into reverse, bringing the ship to a halt behind a large chunk of iron ore. He spun the chair around to face her. Mediocrity, Jace snapped. I was the youngest lead navigator in the sector. I could chart a slipstream through a supernova. Could, Vexa corrected. Past tense. Now you are fearful. You hold back. You are afraid to touch the resonance. Jace froze. I am flying manually. I am not using the resonance. It is too dangerous this close to a monitoring station. That is why you are slow, Vexa said. She stood up and walked over to him. She loomed over the console, her scent filling the small space. The ship craves the connection, Jace. We crave it. We are starving for an anchor. If I open up the resonance, the Meridian sensors might pick it up, Jace argued. They are looking for machines, Vexa said. They are looking for hyperdrive signatures. They are not looking for a mind. Trust the bond. Jace looked at her. Her golden eyes were intense, challenging him. Trust, Jace said bitterly. That is a big word for a marriage of convenience. Trust is the currency of survival, Vexa said. Spend it, or we die poor. Jace exhaled slowly. He turned back to the console. He closed his eyes. He stopped looking at the sensors. He stopped listening to the hum of the reactor. He reached out with his mind. It was like stepping into a freezing river. The universe flooded into him. He felt the gravity well of the nearby star like a weight on his chest. He felt the debris field not as rocks, but as ripples in the fabric of space. And he felt them. He felt Neri in the engine room, a bright spark of chaotic energy. He felt Sari in the medbay, a warm pool of calm. And he felt Vexa standing beside him. She was a pillar of fire, strong, unyielding. Guide us, her voice whispered in his head. Not spoken, but thought. Jace grabbed the yoke, but he didn't steer with his hands. He steered with his will. Neri, give me 30% more power to the port thrusters. On it. Boss Neri's thought came back instantly, faster than any verbal command. The ship didn't just turn, it danced. Jace wove the Starhound's echo through the debris field, with a fluidity that defied physics. They slipped between spinning asteroids with millimeters to spare. The resonance sang in his blood. It was euphoric. It was terrifying. He pushed harder. He felt the currents of the void, the invisible rivers of dark matter that flowed between the stars. He hooked the ship into one of these currents. Speed increased exponentially. No engine flare, no thermal signature, just pure, silent velocity. They cleared the sector in 12 minutes. It should have taken 2 hours. Jace opened his eyes. He was gasping for air, sweat dripping down his nose. The bridge was silent. He looked at the display. They were in clear space. No patrols. No alarms. "Well," Jace wheezed. "That was different." Vexa placed a hand on his shoulder. Her claws lightly scratched the leather of his jacket. "That," Vexa said, her voice low and satisfied, "was flying." Jace looked up at her. For a second, the arrogant mask slipped, and he saw something like respect in her eyes. "We make a dangerous team, wife," Jace said, testing the word. Vexa smirked. A real smirk this time, showing the tips of her sharp white teeth. "We are just getting started, husband." But as she turned away to check the comms, Jace saw her hand tremble slightly. She hid it quickly, tucking it into her robe. Jace narrowed his eyes. The connection had been strong, but through the euphoria, he had sensed a shadow in Vexa's mind. A dark, tangled knot of fear that she was walling off from him. She was hiding something. Something about the bond, or something about the Meridian Circle's plans. Jace turned back to the stars. He would play the role of the anchor. He would be the captain. But he would keep one eye open. Because in the Orion Rim, even your savior could be the one holding the knife. "Neri," Jace called out over the comms. "Status." "Engines are cool," Neri reported. "But the lateral stabilizers are whining." And Jace, "Yeah, that was awesome. Let's do it again." Jace smiled tiredly. "Let's get paid first." The Starhound's echo burned blue against the black, heading toward the unknown, carrying 4 broken souls and a hull full of secrets. The revenge Jace sought was still light years away, but for the first time, he had the means to chase it. He just hoped the price of the ticket wasn't higher than he could pay. The problem with being legally married to a starship, or rather the 3 formidable biological components that ran it, was not the impending threat of galactic imprisonment. It was the dishes. Jace Rowan stood at the sink in the galley of the Starhound's Echo, scrubbing a stubborn stain of nutrient paste off a ceramic bowl. The ship was humming around him, a low vibration that tickled the base of his skull. It was a sensation he was beginning to recognize, not as a mechanical defect, but as the collective subconscious of his crew. "You missed a spot," a voice chirped from the doorway. Jace did not turn around. "Neri, if you are here to critique my sanitation protocols, you can grab a sponge." Neri hopped onto the counter, her tail sweeping dangerously close to the drying rack. She was wearing grease-stained coveralls, and her signature goggles were pulled down around her neck. She held a datapad in one hand and a half-eaten protein bar in the other. "I am the chief engineer," Neri declared, around a mouthful of food. "My hands are for delicate calibration of the warp core, not for scrubbing burnt algae. Besides, Article 12 of the Anchor Pact states that the husband is responsible for, and I quote, maintenance of domestic morale and hygiene standards." "I read the contract, Neri," Jace said, rinsing the bowl. "I am pretty sure Vexa wrote that clause in crayon, 5 minutes after I signed it." "It is binding," Neri grinned, her ears twitching. "Also, Vexa wants you on the bridge. She says your simulation scores from yesterday were acceptable, but lacking in aggressive creativity." Jace sighed, drying his hands on a towel. It had been 3 months since they left Station 7. 3 months of running low-level cargo-dodging guild patrols and learning how to live with 3 7-foot-tall Kitsari women who had zero concept of personal space. They had settled into a rhythm that was chaotic, but functional. Jace was the captain, technically. In practice, he was the diplomat, the pilot, and the person who stopped Neri from turning the toaster into a plasma grenade. Vexa was the iron spine of the operation, handling logistics and combat strategy. Sari was the heart, keeping the peace and monitoring the bizarre biofeedback loop that connected them all. "Tell her I am coming," Jace said, "and clean up your crumbs. If Sari sees them, she will lecture us about attracting void mites." Neri saluted mockingly and vanished down the corridor. Jace walked to the bridge. The Starhound's Echo was currently drifting in the shadow of a gas giant in the Vale sector, a lawless region on the fringe of colonized space. It was the perfect place to hide, and the perfect place to find trouble. When the blast doors slid open, Vexa was standing at the tactical table. The holographic display showed a complex web of shipping lanes. She looked up as Jace entered, her golden eyes sharp. "You are late," Vexa said. "I was fighting a losing battle with breakfast," Jace replied, stepping up to the table. "What have we got?" "A contract," Vexa said, tapping the display. A route highlighted in red appeared. "Medical supplies and atmospheric filters. Destination is a mining colony on the moon of Tantalus. The pay is garbage, but the client is desperate." Jace studied the map. Tantalus was deep in corporate territory, but the moon was a forgotten rock where miners died of lung rot before they turned 40. "Why this one?" Jace asked. "We have better offers from the smuggler's ring." "Because Tantalus is owned by a subsidiary of the Meridian Circle," Vexa said. Her voice dropped an octave, losing its professional edge. "And because my sources suggest that the mining foreman there is funneling raw materials to a black site facility nearby." Jace looked at her. "You want to scout it?" "I want to map the supply chain," Vexa corrected. "If we can find out where that ore is going, we might find another Red Core facility." Jace felt the familiar twist of anger in his gut. Since learning about the labs where Vexa and her sisters were tortured, the abstract concept of revenge had become a concrete weight in his chest. "It is risky," Jace said. "The Circle monitors that sector heavily. If they scan us and the stealth drive falters—" "The drive will not falter," Vexa said. "Neri has reinforced the dampeners, and Sari has been masking our biosignatures." Jace crossed his arms. "And the navigation, that route goes through the Razor Belt. It is a graveyard for automated ships." Vexa leaned forward, resting her hands on the table. She was close enough that Jace could feel the heat radiating from her. "That is why we have you, husband," she said softly. "The resonant navigator. Unless you are afraid." Jace held her gaze. The challenge was there as always, but beneath it, he saw the trust she refused to articulate. "Plot the course," Jace said. "But if we get spaced, I am leaving you a very nasty review in the afterlife." The Razor Belt earned its name honestly. It was not just a field of asteroids. It was a ribbon of fractured spacetime, where gravity did not follow the rules. Rocks the size of cities drifted in erratic patterns, and pockets of radiation boiled up from the dark like geysers. The Starhound's Echo slid into the belt, running silent. All external lights were killed. The hum of the engines was reduced to a whisper. On the bridge, the atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. Jace sat in the pilot's chair, his hands hovering over the controls. He was not looking at the viewports. They were useless here. The visual distortion would only make him vomit. He was flying blind. Or rather, he was flying. "Resonance link initiating," Vexa announced from the station behind him. "Neri power flow. Stable at 90%. Neri's voice came over the comms, unusually serious. "Do not push past 95 or the coils will melt." "Sorry," Vexa said. "Anchor status." "He is ready," Sari said. She was standing next to Jace, her hand resting lightly on the back of his chair. "His mind is open." Jace took a deep breath. "Okay, let us do this. Link up." It hit him like a physical blow. Usually the connection was a low hum, a background noise. But when they engaged the full navigational array, the walls between their minds dissolved. First came Neri, a jagged electric blue sensation. It tasted like copper and adrenaline. She was the engine, the raw thrust, the heat. Then came Sari, a cool green wave. She was the shield, the structural integrity, the glue holding the atoms of the hull together. Finally, Vexa. Vexa was heavy. She felt like velvet and iron. She was the will. She poured into Jace's mind, stabilizing the chaos of the other two, grounding them. And Jace was the lens. He gasped as the sensory data flooded his cortex. He was no longer sitting in a chair. He was the ship. The thrusters were his legs, the sensors were his eyes, and the void outside was a turbulent ocean he had to swim through. Left, the instinct screamed. Jace banked the ship hard to port. A massive asteroid invisible on the radar sheared past them, missing the hull by meters. He felt the gravitational wake of it ruffle his feathers, know the ship's shields. Steady, Vexa's voice echoed in his head. There is a rift ahead, a gravity shear. I see it, Jace thought back. To a normal scanner, the space ahead was empty. To Jace, it was a whirlpool of distorted light. If they flew into it, the ship would be torn into confetti. Neri. I need a burst of speed. 3 seconds. Full burn. You will strip the gears, Neri protested in his mind. Do it. The power surged. Jace rode the wave, threading the needle between the gravity shear and a radiation cloud. The ship groaned, the metal screaming under the stress. The sensation was overwhelming. It was not just pain or effort. It was intimacy. He could feel Neri's fear that the engine mount would snap. He could feel Sari's desperate prayer to the ancestors. He could feel Vexa's fierce, possessive pride in him. They were inside him. He was inside them. For a moment, Jace Rowan ceased to be a human man with a tragic past. He was a creature of 4 souls, burning across the dark. And then, they were through. The turbulence vanished. The gravity smoothed out. The stars stopped spinning. Disengage, Jace croaked. The connection snapped. Jace slumped forward, retching dryly. The silence on the bridge was deafening. His nose was bleeding, dripping bright red drops onto the console. Jace, Sari, was there instantly, wiping his face with a cloth, checking his pulse. Heart rate 180. Neural stress is critical. I am fine, Jace wheezed. We made it. We made it, Vexa said. She sounded breathless. She walked around the chair and stood in front of him. Her fur was standing on end, puffed up by the residual energy. Her pupils were dilated so wide, her eyes were almost entirely black. That was, Vexa started, then stopped. She looked at his bloody nose, then at his shaking hands. That was closer than last time, Jace said, accepting a cup of water from Sari. Your resonance is getting stronger. Or I am getting weaker. You are not getting weaker, Vexa said intensely. You handled a flow that would have lobotomized a standard navigator. You are adapting, Jace. You are changing. Great, Jace muttered. Just what I need. More mutations. Neri's voice crackled over the comms. Hey, did we die? I did not feel us die, but the manifold is glowing purple, which is new. We are alive, Neri, Jace said. Good work. He looked up at Vexa. The professional distance was gone. She was looking at him with a raw, unguarded expression. It wasn't just gratitude. It was recognition. You held us, Vexa whispered. The shear tried to pull Neri apart. You held her together. I held the ship together, Jace corrected, feeling his face heat up. Same thing, Vexa said. She reached out and touched his cheek. Her claws were retracted, the pads of her fingers, soft against his stubble. It was a fleeting touch, lasting less than a second, but it sent a jolt through him that had nothing to do with navigation. Rest, husband, she said, pulling back quickly, as if burned. We will handle the docking approach. Sari watched the exchange, her golden eyes moving between Jace and her sister. A small, knowing smile played on her lips, but she said nothing. The delivery on Tantalus went smoothly, which made Jace suspicious. They unloaded the crates, The foreman grunted a confirmation code, and the credits hit their account. But while the droids were unloading, Nairi had deployed a swarm of micro-drones flies, essentially to scan the facility's local network. Now, back in deep space, they were analyzing the data. "It is confirmed," Nairi said, projecting a hologram onto the mess hall table. "The ore isn't going to the smelters. It is being routed to a jump point in Sector 4. "Sector 4 is empty," Jace said, chewing on a ration bar. "It is a dead zone." "Not empty," Vexa said darkly. "Hidden." She swiped the hologram, zooming in on a set of coordinates. "This signature matches the energy profile of the facility we escaped from. It is a refueling depot for the Black Fleet." "The Meridian Circle's private army," Jace said. "If they are moving ore there, they are building something," Vexa said. "Or repairing something big." Suddenly, the ship's proximity alarm blared. A harsh, rhythmic klaxon that made the fur on the Kitsari's necks stand up. "Contact!" Nairi yelled, scrambling over the table. Long-range sensors just lit up like a supernova. Jace was already running for the bridge. "Profiles, are they pirates?" "Worse," Vexa shouted, running beside him. "Military transponder. Meridian Circle heavy cruiser class." They burst onto the bridge. Jace threw himself into the pilot's seat, while Vexa manned the tactical station. "Shields up," Jace ordered. "Neri, give me everything you have got on the jammers." "They have a lock," Neri screamed from engineering. "Their sensors are punching right through the stealth cloak. They were waiting for us." The comms screen flickered to life. The static cleared to reveal the bridge of a pristine warship. And standing in the center of the frame was a man Jace had hoped never to see again. Director Cade Marrow. He had not aged a day in 5 years. His uniform was immaculate white with gold trim. His hair was slicked back, his face sharp and handsome, in a way that made Jace want to break it. "Well, well," Marrow said, his voice smooth as silk. "I was beginning to think the rumors were exaggerated. But here you are. Jace Rowan, the disgraced prodigy." "Director," Jace said, keeping his voice steady. "To what do I owe the pleasure? I am a private citizen conducting legal commerce." Marrow smiled. It was a cold, reptilian expression. "Legal commerce. My scanners detect 3 unregistered biological anomalies aboard your vessel. High-level resonance signatures. The kind that went missing from one of my labs 3 months ago." Vexa stepped into the frame, standing just behind Jace's shoulder. She did not cower. She glared. "Hello, Director," she said. Marrow's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. "Subject 77 Beta. You have found yourself a pet. How quaint." "He is not a pet," Vexa snarled. "He is my captain." "He is a murderer," Marrow countered, looking back at Jace. "Have you told them, Jace? Have you told your furry girlfriends how you led Convoy 4 Alpha into an ambush? How 300 innocent sailors burned because you were too arrogant to check your vectors?" Jace's grip on the console tightened until the plastic creaked. "I checked the vectors, Cade. The navigational buoys were hacked. By you." "Conspiracy theories from a washed-up drunk," Marrow dismissed. "Power down your engines, Rowan. Surrender the property of the Meridian Circle, and I might let you live long enough to stand trial. Resist, and I will vaporize that rust bucket you call a ship." "He is charging weapons," Nairi yelled. "Torpedo locks detected. 4 of them." Jace looked at the tactical display. The cruiser, the Aegis Prime, was fast and heavily armed. In a straight fight, the Starhound's Echo would be space dust in 10 seconds. "Vexa," Jace said quietly. "The asteroid cluster we passed at Vector 9. How dense is it?" Vexa looked at the map. "Near solid. Suicidal to enter at combat speed." "Perfect," Jace said. He keyed the mic. "Marrow, I have a counteroffer." Marrow raised an eyebrow. "Oh, go to hell." Jace slammed the throttle forward and punched the lateral thrusters. The Starhound flipped 180 degrees, presenting its reinforced belly to the cruiser just as the Aegis fired. Blue plasma bolts screamed past them, scorching the paint. "Nairi, dump the coolant into the afterburners," Jace roared. "The engine will explode. If we stay here, we will explode, do it." The ship bucked like a wild animal as the engines flared white-hot. Jace drove them straight toward the asteroid field. "He is insane!" Marrow's voice crackled over the open channel. "Shoot him down before he enters the cluster." More fire rained around them. A torpedo clipped their shields, sending sparks showering down from the bridge ceiling. "Shields at 40%, Sari cried out from the medical station. "Jace, the radiation in that cluster—" "I know," Jace yelled. "Link up now." They did not hesitate. The connection slammed into place harder and faster than before. Fear, rage, and determination flooded the link. Jace saw the asteroid field, not as rocks, but as a puzzle. A chaotic shifting maze. "Vexa, calculate the drift of that big one on the left." "Done. 7 degrees rotation. There is a gap. Sari, pump the bioshields." "We are going to take some radiation hits. Holding steady. Neri, scream for me." Neri pushed the engines beyond the red line. The Starhound's echo became a streak of light. They hit the edge of the cluster at 3,000 kilometers per second. To the crew of the Aegis Prime, it looked like suicide. The freighter vanished into a wall of spinning rock. Inside the field, Jace was conducting a symphony of near misses. He rolled the ship under a tumbling mountain of iron, banked hard to avoid a collision with a jagged shard of ice, and used the gravity of a localized singularity to slingshot them deeper into the maze. The resonance was screaming. Jace's nose was bleeding again. His vision blurred. "Keep going," Vexa's presence urged him. "You are stronger than him. You are better than him." "I am better," Jace thought viciously. He pulled a maneuver that was theoretically impossible. A dead drift reverse thrust that spun the ship around a blind corner, hiding them behind a massive lead-heavy asteroid that blocked all sensor scans. He killed the engines. "Hard shutdown, everything is off." The ship went dark. Gravity plating, life support lights. Everything died. They drifted in the silence, listening to the terrifying thud-crunch-thud of debris bouncing off the hull. Minutes passed. On the passive sensors, they watched the Aegis Prime circle the edge of the field like a shark. It fired a few probing shots into the rocks, but the interference was too high. "Target lost," a faint signal from the cruiser intercepted. "Presumed destroyed by impact." "Let them believe it," Marrow's voice said, faint and distorted. "Set a course for the outpost. Alert the bounty hunters. If they survive, I want their heads." The signal faded as the cruiser warped away. On the bridge of the Starhound, the emergency lights flickered on, casting the crew in a dim red glow. Jace exhaled a long, shuddering breath. He slumped back in his chair. "Everyone alive." "Define alive," Neri groaned. "My tail is twitching uncontrollably, and I think I can taste the color purple." "Alive," Sari confirmed, checking her vitals. "But the stress on the hull was extreme." Jace turned his head to look at Vexa. She was staring at the screen where Marrow's face had been. Her claws were dug deep into the upholstery of the tactical chair. "He knows," Vexa whispered. "He knows I am here." "He knows we are all here," Jace said. He wiped the blood from his lip. "And now, we know something too." "What?" Vexa asked. "We know he is afraid of us," Jace said. "Did you hear his voice? He was not just angry. He was terrified." That night, sleep was impossible. The ship was running on backup power to effect repairs, so the ambient temperature had dropped 10 degrees. Jace sat in the observation lounge, wrapped in a blanket, looking out at the asteroid field that was currently saving their lives. The door hissed open. Vexa entered. She was not wearing her usual tactical gear. She wore a simple loose tunic, and her fur looked less groomed than usual. She carried 2 mugs. She sat down opposite him and slid a mug across the table. "Tea. Sari's blend. It helps with the resonance headaches." "Thanks," Jace said, wrapping his hands around the warmth. They sat in silence for a long time. "The massacre," Vexa said, suddenly. She did not look at him. She looked at the stars. "Convoy 4 Alpha. You were there." "I was the lead navigator," Jace said. The memory was always there, a sharp shard of glass in his brain. "It was a standard run. Food supplies for the outer rim. We entered the vector, and the navigation buoys shifted. Sent us straight into a rogue gravity well. 3 ships were crushed instantly. The others collided." "And you blamed yourself," Vexa said. "I signed off on the route," Jace said bitterly. "My signature. My responsibility." "It was not an accident," Vexa said. Her voice was hollow. "It was a test." Jace looked up. "What?" Vexa turned to him. Her golden eyes were swimming with tears she refused to shed. 3 years ago," she began. "At the Red Core facility. They were testing a new kind of engine, a resonance drive that could move a fleet instantly across the galaxy. But they needed a target. They needed to know if the drive could displace matter remotely." She took a breath. "They used us, me, Nairi Sari, and a dozen others. They hooked us up to the machine. They forced us to reach out and grab a point in space. To twist it." Jace felt a cold horror spreading through his veins. "Vexa, no." "We did not know what we were doing," Vexa whispered. "We were in pain. We just wanted it to stop. The scientists pointed us at a set of coordinates and told us to push. So we pushed." She looked at Jace, her expression pleading for forgiveness. "We created gravity well. We moved the buoys. We destroyed your convoy." Jace sat frozen. The tea in his cup had gone cold. The monsters who killed his crew, who ruined his life, were sitting in the next room. Was sitting right in front of him. "You killed them," Jace said. His voice was devoid of emotion. "We were the gun," Vexa said fiercely. "Marrow pulled the trigger. We screamed Jace. We fought. But the neural clamps had no choice." Jace stood up. He walked to the window. He looked at his reflection in the glass. He saw a tired man. A broken man. He should be angry. He should hate her. But he remembered the connection in the asteroid field. He remembered feeling her mind. He had felt the scars there, the trauma, the guilt that was eating her alive, just like his guilt ate him. They were both weapons used by the same hand. "There was a distress call," Jace said softly. "During the massacre, before the comms died. One of the ships, the captain was screaming about a shadow in the void. A red shadow." "That was our projection," Vexa said. "Our psychic echo." Jace turned around. "And afterward, when the inquiry happened, I tried to testify. I tried to say the buoys were moved, and Marrow silenced me." "Because you were a witness to a weapons test," Vexa said. "If anyone believed you, they might look closer. They might find the red core." Jace looked at her. He saw the barcode on her shoulder. Asset 77 Beta. "He destroyed my life to cover up your existence," Jace realized. "And he tortured you to build a weapon that could rule the galaxy." Jace walked back to the table. He did not sit. He leaned down, placing his hands on the surface. "We are done running," Jace said. Vexa blinked. "What?" "Marrow called us traitors," Jace said. A cold, hard fury was crystallizing in his chest. "He called us anomalies. He thinks we are just trying to survive." "We are trying to survive," Vexa said. "No," Jace shook his head. "Survival is for prey. I am tired of being prey. Marrow wants a war. Let us give him one." "Jace," Vexa warned, "we are one freighter against a fleet. We are a ghost ship with the best navigator in history and 3 resonance-powered engines," Jace countered. "We do not fight them head-on. We bleed them. We find every black site, every slave transport, every secret depot. We smash them. We free your people and we steal their data. We build a case so undeniable that even the Meridian Circle cannot bury it." Vexa looked at him. The fear in her eyes was replaced by something else. Hope, or maybe hunger. A silent counterattack, she mused. Loud enough to hurt, Jace said. Quiet enough to disappear. Neri will want to blow up the moon, Vexa warned. Neri can blow up specific parts of the moon, Jace conceded. Strategically, Vexa stood up. She was taller than him, but at that moment, they felt like equals. She reached out and took his hand. This time, she did not pull away. You are a dangerous man, husband, she said. I learned from the best wife, Jace replied. The argument the next morning was loud enough to wake the dead. We are going to do what? Neri shrieked, her tail puffing up to 3 times its normal size. Attack a slave transport. Are you high on exhaust fumes? It is a tactical insertion, Vexa corrected calmly. We intercepted the logs from the Aegis Prime. There is a transport leaving orbit in 6 hours. It is carrying biological assets. More of our kind. And you want to board it? Sari asked, her face pale. We are not soldiers, Jace. We are refugees. We are whatever we need to be, Jace said, checking his stun baton. Look, Neri, you said you wanted to make them pay. This is how. I wanted to put sugar in their fuel tanks, not engage in piracy, Neri argued, though she was already calibrating a plasma cutter. It is not piracy if you are stealing back stolen lives, Jace said. It is liberation. The plan was messy, improvised, and relied entirely on their ability to bluff. They caught the transport, the Iron Lung, in deep space. They did not hail it. They did not threaten it. Jace simply dropped the Starhound's Echo out of warp, directly on top of it, a micro-jump so precise it sheared the transport's communication array off with their landing gear. Magnetic clamps locked, Neri shouted. We are attached to their hull. Cutting through, Vexa said, donning a combat mask. She handed Jace a heavy pulse rifle. Try not to shoot yourself. I was top of my class in marksmanship, Jace muttered, taking the weapon. That was with a pistol. This is a cannon, Vexa said. They breached the airlock. The transport crew were private security contractors, mercenaries hired by the Circle. They were not expecting a 7-foot foxwoman to come tearing through the smoke, wielding a gravity hammer. Vexa was a blur of red fur and violence. She did not kill, she incapacitated. Broken bones, concussions, shattered armor. Jace covered her flank, picking off targets with surprising precision. The resonance hummed in the back of his mind, giving him a 360-degree awareness of the corridor. Behind you, Neri's voice shouted in his head from the ship. Jace spun and stunned a guard who was popping out of a vent. Nice shot, Vexa grunted, kicking down a bulkhead door. They found the cargo hold. It was packed with stasis pods. Inside were Kitsari, men, women, children, frozen in suspended animation tagged with barcodes. Oh, ancestors, Sari whispered over the comms. She was monitoring via the ship's cameras. Get them out. Get them all out. It took 20 minutes to transfer the pods to the Starhound's Echo. It was grueling work. As they were loading the last pod, the transport's captain, a bleeding man with a broken nose, laughed from where he was tied up on the floor. You think this saves you, he spat. You just painted a target on your back the size of a nebula. Jace stopped. He walked over to the man. We already have a target, Jace said. We are just making it brighter so you do not miss it. He knelt down. Tell Marrow something for me. Tell him yourself, the mercenary sneered. I will, Jace said. Tell him the navigator is awake, and tell him his ghosts are coming home. Jace knocked the man out with the butt of his rifle. Drama queen, Vexa muttered, dragging a pod. But she was smiling. They jumped away just as a Meridian response fleet entered the system. Back on the Starhound, the mood was a strange mix of exhaustion and triumph. The cargo hold was full of sleeping Kitsari. Sari was already working on waking them up safely. Neri was in the mess hall, shaking with adrenaline. Did you see that I hacked their turrets? I made them shoot their own engines. Vexa sat in the corner, cleaning her hammer. She looked tired, but the shadow in her eyes was lighter. Jace walked to the comm station. He saw the bounty posting. It had hit the shadowy networks 10 minutes ago. Wanted dead or alive the traitor navigator, Jace Rowan. Accomplices the Red Fox wives. Bounty, 5 million credits. Jace stared at the number. 5 million. It was enough to buy a moon. "We are famous," Jace said. Vexa walked up behind him. She rested her chin on his shoulder, her height, forcing him to look up slightly. 5 million, she scoffed. I am insulted. I am worth at least 10. We will work on raising your value, Jace said dryly. He looked at the screen, then at Vexa. Are we ready for this? Jace asked quietly. This is not smuggling anymore. This is war. Vexa wrapped her arms around him from behind her tails, curling around his legs. It was a gesture of possession protection, and perhaps something deeper. We have the ship, she said. We have the resonance. And for the first time, husband, we have a cause. Jace leaned back against her warmth. He closed his eyes and felt the hum of the ship, the heartbeat of the universe, and the steady pulse of the 3 women who had claimed him. Right, Jace said, opening his eyes. Neri set a course for the nebula. We need to hide, we need to resupply, and then... Then, Neri asked from the doorway. Then we go hunting, Jace said. The Starhound's echo turned its nose toward the deep dark, leaving the burning transport behind a spark of rebellion in a galaxy ruled by fear. The hologram of Mira Holt flickered in the low light of the Starhound's echo tactical room. The investigative journalist looked exhausted, her image, grainy, due to the layers of encryption she was using to bounce the signal through half a dozen relay buoys. I am not going to lie to you, Jace, Mira said, her voice distorted by static. This is not a scoop. This is a death sentence. Jace Rowan leaned against the holotable, his arms crossed. The scars on his hands, souvenirs from the last 3 months of raiding Meridian supply lines, ached in the damp air of the ship. Tell me what you found, Mira, Jace said. The Red Core facility, Mira whispered. She uploaded a packet of data to their local drive. A rotating wireframe of a massive station appeared above the table. It looked like a tick burrowed into the skin of space itself, bristling with antennae and weapon platforms. It is located in the Ethelgard Nebula, deep space. No commercial lanes, no patrols, because nothing goes in there and comes out. Vexa stood beside Jace, her eyes locked on the spinning image. That is it, she said softly. That is the place. I recognize the docking spires. It gets worse, Mira continued. My sources inside the circle say they are moving the project to Phase 2. They are not just using Kitsari as engines anymore. They are trying to fuse the biological navigational cortex directly into the ship's mainframe. Permanent integration. If they succeed, the subject does not survive the process. Neri, who was sitting on the edge of the table swinging her legs, stopped moving. Her ears flattened against her skull. They are going to kill them, all of them. There are over 200 signatures in the detention block, Mira said. And Jace. There is something else. The central server core at that facility holds the black box archives for the entire sector, including the telemetry data from Convoy 4 Alpha. Jace felt the blood go cold in his veins. The massacre, the event that had ruined his life, labeled him a butcher, and haunted his nightmares for 5 years. The truth was, sitting in a computer bank in the heart of enemy territory. We have to go, Jace said. It was not a question. Wait for the bad news, Mira warned. The Ethelgard Nebula is undergoing a cyclic event, a void storm. It is a Class 5 spatial hurricane. Gravitational shears blind pockets reality distortion. The sensors of the Meridian defense grid are offline because nothing can scan through that storm. But that also means you cannot scan your way in. You will be flying blind into a blender. A void storm, Vexa mused. She looked at Jace. The sensors will be blind, but we will not be. Jace looked at the map. The storm was a swirling vortex of purple and black data. It was suicide. It was madness. "We go in during the peak of the storm," Jace said, his mind racing. "We use the chaos as cover. We dock, we breach. We free the prisoners, and we steal the data before the storm clears and their sensors come back online." "You have a 3-hour window," Mira said. "If you are not out by the time the eye of the storm passes, the entire Meridian Third Fleet will be waiting for you. Good luck, Jace. Holt out." The hologram vanished. The silence in the room was heavy. "We are going to die," Nairi said matter-of-factly. She hopped off the table. "I need to reinforce the structural integrity fields. If we hit a gravity shear without dampeners, we will be crushed into a tin can." "I will prepare the medical bay for mass casualties," Sari said quietly. She touched Jace's arm as she passed. "Breathe, Captain. Your heart is beating too fast." They left. Jace stood alone with Vexa. He stared at the wireframe of the Red Core. He was not thinking about the strategy. He was thinking about the sheer crushing weight of the risk. He was risking his life, yes, but he was also risking Vexa, Neri, Sari. He was risking the only family he had left for a chance at vindication. "You are hesitating," Vexa said. Jace turned to the viewport. The stars were streaking by as the ship traveled at cruise speed. "I am calculating odds. They are not good." "Since when do you care about odds?" Vexa asked. She moved closer, her presence dominating the space. "You are the resonant navigator. You bend odds." "I am a man who got 300 people killed once," Jace snapped. He turned to face her. "If I get this wrong, Vexa, it is not just me who burns. It is you. They are your sisters. It is those people in the pods." "So we should turn back?" Vexa asked. Her voice was dangerously calm. "We should find a nice quiet moon and hide live out our 5-year contract safely." "Maybe," Jace admitted. "Maybe that is what a good husband would do. Keep his family safe," Vexa laughed. It was a sharp barking sound. She stepped forward and poked a clawed finger into his chest. "Do not insult me with your human cowardice disguised as protection," she hissed. "I did not marry a caretaker. I married an anchor." She grabbed the lapels of his jacket and pulled him down so their faces were inches apart. Her golden eyes were burning. "Listen to me, Jace Rowan. If you are only doing this because of the paper you signed, then stop. If we are just cargo to you, turn the ship around. We will take an escape pod and go to the Red Core ourselves. We will die, but we will die free." Jace stared at her. Jace. He saw the ferocity in her, but he also saw the terror she was hiding. She was terrified of losing him, but she was more terrified of him not being the man she believed he was. "But," Vexa softened her grip, though she did not let go. "If we are real, if this," she gestured between them, "is a family, then we go together. We bleed together. We win together. Or we turn into stardust together. Those are the terms." Jace looked at her. He realized that for months he had been holding back a part of himself, afraid to fully commit to the bond, because he was afraid of the pain of losing it. He was treating them as a temporary alliance, but he could not imagine a universe without Vexa's arrogance, Nairi's chaos, or Sari's kindness. "I do not want to be a widower," Jace whispered. "Then do not let us die," Vexa whispered back. Jace reached up and covered her hands with his own. "We go. But if we survive this, I am renegotiating the contract. No more sleeping in separate bunks during hyperspace jumps. It is too cold." Vexa smirked, her ears twitching. "Survivors get to make demands. Now come. The storm is waiting." The Ethelgard Nebula looked like a bruise on the face of the galaxy. Massive clouds of violet gas swirled around a central point of absolute darkness. Lightning arcs the size of planetary diameters lashed out from the gloom, silent and deadly. The Starhound's echo shuddered as it hit the outer turbulence layer. "Sensors are down!" Nairi shouted from the engineering station. "LiDAR is useless. Radar is just snow. We are flying on visuals and prayers." "Not prayers," Jace said. He settled into the pilot's chair. Resonance. All crew, Jace said into the comms. Initiate full integration. No filters. I need everything you have. Warning. Sari's voice came calm but tight. Full integration at this proximity to a spatial anomaly could cause neural feedback loops. We risk collective seizure. If we do not do it, we hit a rock, Jace said. Link up. He closed his eyes. The connection slammed into him. It was not a stream this time. It was a tsunami. The void storm was not just a weather phenomenon. It was a scream in the fabric of reality. Jace felt it tearing at his mind. It felt like 1,000 hooks trying to pull his consciousness apart. But then, the anchors held. I have the port stabilizers, Nairi's mind shouted a bright, frantic spark. Injecting plasma now. Shields are modulating. Sari's presence flowed over him like cool water, soothing the burn of the storm. I will keep the radiation out of your cells. Focus, husband. Vexa's voice was a steel rod in his spine. The path is to the left. Through the sheer. Jace opened his mental eyes. He did not see the bridge of the ship. He saw the universe as a web of tension and flow. The void storm was a chaotic tangle of lines, but there were gaps. Tiny, shifting tunnels of stability. Hanging on! Jace yelled, though his lips did not move. He threw the Starhound's echo into a dive. To an outside observer, the ship moved like a leaf caught in a hurricane. It rolled, pitched, and yawed violently. But to Jace it was a dance. He felt a gravitational wave approaching from the starboard side, a wall of invisible force. Nairi reverse thrusters on Engine 2 copy. The ship spun on its axis, letting the gravity wave slide harmlessly over the hull shields. Debris field ahead, Vexa warned. Iron density. Fast moving. I see it, Jace thought. Sari hardened the nose cone. Jace threaded the ship through a gap between two tumbling asteroids that were smashing into each other. He felt the impact of the dust against the shields as a vibration in his own skin. The pain was immense. His brain felt like it was being microwaved. The resonance required to navigate this chaos was burning through his neural pathways. Jace, your vitals are dropping, Sari warned. You are stroking out. Not yet, Jace gritted his teeth. Almost there. I can feel the station. It is heavy. It tastes like metal and blood. The red core facility loomed out of the purple fog. It was a monstrosity of black steel hanging in the eye of the storm. It was silent, dark, and terrifying. We are in the eye, Jace gasped. Disengaging link now. The connection severed. Jace slumped forward, blood pouring from both nostrils. He coughed, spitting red onto his flight suit. Status, he wheezed. We are alive, Vexa said. She was gripping the tactical table, panting. And we are undetected. Their sensors are scrambled by the storm wall. Docking clamps engaging, Nairi reported, her voice shaky. We are latching onto the maintenance airlock in Sector 7. It is the garbage disposal chute. Classy. Suit up, Jace ordered, wiping his face. Vexa, you and I are the strike team. Nairi, stay here and hack the door. Once we are in, I need you to override their internal security. Sari, prep the cargo bay. We are bringing guests. The air inside the Red Core facility smelled of ozone and antiseptic. It was the smell of a hospital run by an executioner. Jace and Vexa moved through the corridors in silence. They wore light combat armor and carried suppressed pulse rifles. Jace's head was still throbbing from the flight, but the adrenaline kept him focused. They found the first holding block. It was a cavernous room, lined with glass cylinders. Inside, each cylinder, floated a Kitsari. They were unconscious, hooked up to tubes and wires that dug into their spines and skulls. Vexa stopped. She lowered her weapon. Her hand trembled as she reached out to touch the glass of the nearest tank. Inside was an elderly male Kitsari, his fur gray and patchy. They are draining them, Vexa whispered. Look at the readouts. They are siphoning bioresonance to power the station's shielding. Nairi, Jace tapped his comms. Tell me you can open these. I am working on it, Neri replied, her voice tight with anger. The encryption is nasty. Meridian military grade. Give me 5 minutes. We do not have 5 minutes, Jace said. The storm eye is moving. We have 2 hours before the turbulence hits again. Jace, Vexa said. She was looking at a heavy blast door at the end of the hall. The main server room is that way. The black box. Go, Jace said. I will guard the prisoners until Neri pops the locks. No, Vexa said. We stick together. We get the data, we disable the security grid from the main hub, and then we release everyone at once. It is the only way to clear the path to the ship. They moved to the blast door. Neri worked her magic remotely, and the heavy steel hissed open. The central control room was a circular chamber, dominated by a massive holographic globe of the sector. Banks of consoles lined the walls. Standing in the center of the room watching the tactical display was Director Cade Marrow. He turned as they entered. He did not look surprised. He looked disappointed. I knew it, Marrow sighed. I told security that a void storm would not stop a resonant. But no one listens to the visionary until the barbarian is at the gate. Jace raised his rifle, aiming directly at Marrow's chest. Step away from the console, Cade. 2 automated turrets dropped from the ceiling, locking onto Jace and Vexa. I would not do that, Marrow said smoothly. My reaction time is faster than yours. Drop the weapons. Vexa growled a low rumble in her chest, but she lowered her rifle. Jace did the same. You are persistent, Rowan, Marrow said, walking around the hologram. And you, he looked at Vexa with distaste. Asset 77. You look healthy. The wildlife suits you. Shut up, Jace said. We are here for the data, and the prisoners. The prisoners are property of the Meridian Circle, Marrow said. And the data, well, that is a matter of perspective. Marrow tapped a key on the console. The main screen flickered to life. It showed grainy footage from 5 years ago. The bridge of a flagship. Jace saw himself. Younger, cleaner. He was standing over a navigation table. Captain Rowan, a voice on the recording said. The sector is clear. Sign the authorization for the route. On screen, Jace picked up the stylus. He checked the coordinates. He signed. There, Marrow said, pointing. You signed it. You authorized the convoy to enter the trap. Because the sensors were hacked, Jace shouted. I saw clear space. Did you? Marrow smiled cruelly. Or were you just arrogant? Were you so sure of your precious resonance that you ignored the warning signs? Stop it, Vexa said. She stepped forward. We know what you did. We know you used Kitsari mines to create gravity well. Of course I did, Marrow snapped. Progress requires fuel, but Jace looked closer. Marrow tapped the console again. He brought up the code log of the navigation buoy. This is the override command that shifted the buoys, Marrow said. It is complex code. Far too complex for a simple remote hack. It required a direct interface. Jace looked at the code. It was a mess of binary and biological syntax. Someone had to be plugged into the system to authorize the shift, Marrow said softly. Someone with a high-level resonance signature. But also, someone with human neural pathways. Jace stared at the screen. He walked forward, ignoring the turrets. He placed his hand on the data port. Resonate. He pushed his mind into the computer. He saw the code. He saw the moment the order was given. He saw the Meridian signature. But underneath it, buried deep in the architecture, he felt a presence. It was a memory, a ghost in the machine. He felt a mind touching the system. It felt like Vexa, fiery strong, but older, sadder. And he heard a voice, not with his ears, but in his skull. A voice of an old female Kitsari, for the bridge child, for the future. And then Jace saw the truth. The order had been to destroy the entire convoy, to kill everyone. But this second hacker had fought Marrow's command. She had altered the coordinates at the last microsecond. She had not saved the convoy. She had failed. But she had saved one ship, Jace's ship, the flagship. Jace pulled his hand back as if burned. She saved me. Who? Vexa asked, stepping up to him. The Kitsari who was plugged into the core, Jace whispered. She diverted the gravity well. She sacrificed the other ships to push mine out of the kill zone. I survived because she chose to save me. Marrow frowned. What are you babbling about? The weapon malfunctioned. It missed one ship. It did not malfunction, Jace said, looking at Marrow with newfound clarity. You were sabotaged. From the inside. Marrow's face twisted in rage. Enough, it does not matter. You are here and you are trespassing. Marrow slammed his hand onto a large red button on the console. Self-destruct sequence initiated, a computerized voice announced. Core overload in 10 minutes. If I cannot have this facility, Marrow sneered. No one can. The storm will mask the explosion. It will just look like a reactor failure. You are insane, Vexa shouted. You will die too. I have a shuttle primed in the executive hangar, Marrow said. As he spoke, a force field slammed down, separating him from Jace and Vexa. He turned and ran toward the rear exit. Nairi, Jace yelled into the comms. Open the cells. Now get them to the ship. I am trying, Nairi panicked. The self-destruct locked the system down. I can open the cells, but the magnetic clamps on the Starhound are jammed. I cannot detach the ship. What? Jace went cold. The station is holding us, Nairi cried. If the station blows, it takes the Starhound with it. Jace looked at the console. The timer was ticking down, 9 minutes. He looked at Vexa. She was already moving to the door, ready to run back to the prisoners. Go, Jace said. Help Nairi load the survivors. Get everyone on board. And you, Vexa stopped. I have to release the clamps, Jace said. He pointed to the central data core. I can do it from here, but I have to manually override the lockdown. Jace, go, Jace screamed. We do not have time, I will follow you. Vexa hesitated for 1 second. Then she turned and ran. Jace turned back to the console. He did not try to hack it. He did not have the codes. He placed both hands on the interface node. He closed his eyes. Resonate. He dove into the station's mind. It was a raging inferno of data and energy. The self-destruct sequence was a countdown of nuclear fire. The magnetic clamps were held shut by 1 billion lines of encryption. Jace did not try to untie the knot. He tried to use the knife. He pushed. He pushed with everything he had. He poured his mind into the clamps, forcing the mechanisms to grind open against the computer's will. Access denied. Access denied. Access denied. The feedback was agonizing. His nose bled. His eyes bled. He felt capillaries bursting in his brain. Open, damn you, on the ship, Nairi was screaming. Clamps are loosening, but the reactor is going critical. We have 2 minutes. Jace fell to his knees, his hands still glued to the console. He could not let go. If he let go, the clamps would re-engage. He had to hold the door open while the building burned down around him. Jace, Vexa's voice came over the comms. We have the prisoners, get to the ship. I cannot, Jace whispered. He tasted copper and ash. If I let go, the clamps lock. You have to fly. Go. No, Vexa said. No. Nairi launch, Jace ordered. That is a direct order from your captain, save them. Nairi was sobbing. Jace watched the timer. 1 minute. He was going to die here, alone. But he had cleared his name. He had found the truth, and he had saved his family. It was a good death. He closed his eyes, waiting for the fire. The blast door hissed open. Jace looked up, his vision swimming. Vexa was there. She was not on the ship. She was running toward him, her red fur matted with sweat, her eyes wild. You idiot! She roared. She reached him and grabbed his shoulders. Vexa, get out! Jace rasped. The clamps! Nairi has bypassed the physical lock, Vexa shouted. We do not need the computer anymore. Let go. I cannot, Jace stuttered. The energy had him trapped. He was part of the circuit now. Vexa did not hesitate. She slammed her forehead against his. Link. She did not ask. She forced her way into his mind. It was not the gentle connection of the ship. It was a collision of souls. She poured her strength into him, not to push the computer, but to pull him out. Come back to me, her mind screamed. I can't, Jace thought. It is too heavy. Then I will carry it, Vexa answered. And then the confession. It wasn't words. It was a flash of pure emotion. He saw himself through her eyes. He saw a broken man who had bought a rusty ship. He saw the night he defended them from Grix. He saw the way he looked at her when she strategized. He felt her love. It was fierce, possessive, and absolute. You are my anchor, she thought. You are my husband, not by paper, by blood, by choice. Come home, Jace gasped. The realization hit him harder than the resonance. He was loved. With a primal scream, Jace ripped his hands away from the console. The connection snapped. The backlash threw them both across the room. The station groaned. 30 seconds, the computer chirped. Vexa grabbed him. She hauled him to his feet. Jace's legs were useless. She didn't care. She threw his arm over her shoulder and half carried, half dragged him toward the airlock. Neri! Vexa screamed. Blow the hatch! They reached the airlock, just as the corridor behind them erupted in flame. They threw themselves into the Starhound's echo. Go, go, go! Vexa yelled, hitting the seal button. Neri fired the thrusters before the door was fully closed. The Starhound's echo tore away from the Red Core facility. 3 seconds later, the station vanished. It did not just explode. It collapsed. The self-destruct ignited the stored resonant energy. A mini black hole formed for a nanosecond, then detonated outward in a shockwave of white light. The void storm swallowed the fire. Inside the ship, Jace lay on the deck of the airlock, staring up at the ceiling. He could not feel his fingers. He could not hear anything but a high-pitched ringing. Vexa was hovering over him. She was checking his eyes, his pulse. Stay with me, she commanded. Stay with me, Jace. Jace managed a weak smile. He reached up his hand, shaking uncontrollably, and touched her cheek. Refund, Jace whispered, his voice a ruin. Vexa froze. She leaned down, pressing her forehead against his again. It was gentle this time. A kiss of minds. Not aloud, she finished for him, her voice breaking. Jace closed his eyes, and the darkness took him. But it was a warm darkness. He was safe. He was home. The silence inside Jace Rowan's head was louder than any explosion. For 5 years, Jace had lived with the hum of the universe in the back of his skull. The resonance was a constant companion, a static charge that tasted like ozone and possibilities. It was the sense that let him feel gravity before it touched him, the instinct that turned a starship into an extension of his own nervous system. Now there was nothing. Just a hollow, aching void. Jace opened his eyes. The ceiling of the medical bay was a soothing, sterile white. He tried to sit up, but a wave of vertigo slammed him back down against the mattress. The room spun. His stomach lurched. Stay down, a soft voice commanded. Your neural pathways are still fused. If you move too fast, you will vomit. Sorry, stepped into his field of vision. She looked tired. Her usually pristine russet fur was matted in places, and there were dark circles under her amber eyes. She held a scanner over his chest, the green light washing over his skin. How long? Jace croaked. His throat felt like he had swallowed a handful of desert sand. 4 days, Sari said, adjusting a drip line connected to his arm. You burned out your resonant cortex, Jace. The amount of energy you channeled to hold those magnetic clamps open, it should have liquefied your brain. You are lucky to be alive. The ship, Jace asked, panic spiking in his chest. The others. Safe, Sari said, placing a cool hand on his forehead. Her touch was grounding, but he could not feel her mind. The bond was silent. "We are currently drifting in the nebula's outer drift, hiding in the ion clouds. The Starhound's echo is intact, though Nairi is complaining about the structural stress on the hull." "And the refugees?" "Alive," Sari said. A small, proud smile touched her lips. 64 Kitsari. "We have them all." The door to the medical bay swooshed open. Neri marched in carrying a tray of food that smelled like nutrient paste and engine grease. She stopped at the foot of the bed, her goggles perched on her forehead. "Look who decided to rejoin the living," Neri announced loudly. "I was about to draw a mustache on you with a permanent marker. A big curly one." "Neri volume," Sari chided gently. "He is fine," Neri dismissed, hopping onto the end of the bed. Her tails twitched with nervous energy. Typical husband behavior. As soon as the fighting starts, he plays the hero. As soon as the dishes need doing, he falls into a coma. Jace managed a weak laugh, which turned into a cough. "I will do the dishes for a month if you tell me the Meridian fleet is gone." "They are gone," Neri said, her expression sobering. "But they are angry. You should see the news feeds. You are quite popular." Neri pulled a datapad from her belt and projected a holographic screen into the air. The face of a Meridian news anchor, a woman with severe hair and a pristine uniform, floated above the bed. The headline scrolling beneath her read, "Terrorist attack on research facility. Thousands dead." The rogue navigator Jace Rowan, accompanied by a cell of non-human extremists, detonated a nuclear device at the Red Core energy plant. The anchor reported, her voice dripping with rehearsed outrage. The facility, which provided power to the outer colonies, was destroyed with all hands. The Meridian Circle has declared Rowan and his Red Fox accomplices as enemies of humanity. Jace closed his eyes. "They are spinning it. They are erasing the prison. They are making us monsters." "Let them spin," a deep voice said from the doorway. Vexa entered. She looked different. She was not wearing her combat armor or her navigator's robes. She wore a simple tunic, her arms bare, revealing the faded scars of her own imprisonment. She carried herself with a weight that had not been there before, the weight of a leader who had saved her people, but now had to figure out how to keep them alive. "Turn it off, Neri," Vexa ordered. The hologram vanished. Vexa walked to the side of the bed. She looked down at Jace, her golden eyes searching his face. "You cannot hear us," Vexa stated. It was not a question. "No," Jace admitted. "It is quiet. Too quiet." "It will return," Vexa said firmly. "Sari says the burnout is temporary. Your mind is healing. Until then, you rest. I am captain." "I thought we agreed I was captain," Jace murmured. "You are captain when you can stand up without falling over," Vexa countered. She reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead. The gesture was intimate, possessive. "You saved us, Jace. You held the door." "I promised," Jace said. "You did," Vexa nodded. "And now we have a ship designed for 4 people carrying nearly 70. We are low on food. We are low on fuel. And half the galaxy wants to hang us. Welcome back to the fight, husband." Recovery was slow and frustrating. For the first week, Jace was confined to a wheelchair that Neri had cobbled together from spare pilot seats and anti-grav units. He felt useless, a passenger on his own ship. But the Starhound's echo had changed. It was no longer just a ship. It was a village. The cargo hold had been converted into a dormitory. Hammocks were strung between hydraulic pipes. The air smelled of unwashed bodies, strong tea, and fear. The refugees were a mix of age's elderly Kitsari, who had spent decades in chains, and young ones who had never known a sky that wasn't made of steel. They looked at Jace with a mixture of awe and suspicion. To them, he was a paradox, a human, the enemy species, yet he was the husband anchor of their saviors. One evening, Jace wheeled himself into the makeshift mess hall. Mira Holt had sent an encrypted data burst earlier that day, and Jace needed to discuss it with Vexa. He found Vexa standing in the center of the room, surrounded by a group of younger Kitsari. They were arguing. "We should hit the colony at Vega Prime," a young male Kitsari was shouting. He had a scar running diagonally across his snout, and only 2 tails, the sign of a traumatic amputation. His name was Roken. "It is a soft target, no military, just corporate families." "We are not murderers, Roken," Vexa said, her voice steel. "They murdered us," Roken snarled. He pointed a claw at a screen, showing images of the Red Corps wreckage. "They used my brother as a battery, until he withered into husk. Why should their children sleep safely, while we hide in the dark?" "Because if we kill civilians, we become exactly what they say we are," Jace said, his voice cutting through the noise. The room went silent. Dozens of golden eyes turned to him. Roken glared, his ears flattened. "The human speaks," Roken spat. "Easy for you to talk of mercy. You look like them." Jace rolled his chair forward. The motor whirred softly in the silence. He stopped inches from Roken. The Kitsari towered over him, but Jace did not flinch. "I look like them," Jace agreed. "And for 5 years they hunted me just like they hunted you. They took my name, my career, and my dignity. I have every reason to want to burn their worlds down." "Then why stop us?" Roken challenged. "Because that is what Marrow wants," Jace said. "Director Marrow wants a war. He wants you to attack a school or a hospital. He wants footage of Kitsari tearing humans apart. Because the moment that airs, he gets the funding to build 1,000 more Red Corps. He gets the public permission to wipe your species out entirely." Jace looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the refugees. "We are not fighting for revenge anymore," Jace said. "Revenge is small. Revenge is for the past. We are fighting for the future. We are fighting for the right to exist. And you do not win that fight by killing innocents. You win it by exposing the truth." "Truth does not stop bullets," Roken muttered, though his aggression was wavering. "No," Jace said, "but it aims at them. Mira Holt released the first batch of data from the Red Corps an hour ago. Not the explosion, the logs, the videos of the experiments." Vexa tapped her datapad, projecting a new image onto the wall. It was a feed from a major independent news network. A human anchor was speaking, looking pale and shaken. Leaked documents appear to confirm allegations of systemic torture and biological experimentation by the Meridian Circle. Protests have erupted in 3 major colonies. The Independent Captains Guild has declared a boycott of Meridian ports until an investigation is launched. "You see," Jace said softly, "the galaxy is not just made of monsters. There are people out there who will stand with us if we give them a reason." Roken looked at the screen, then back at Jace. The hate in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a confused exhaustion. "We are hungry human," Roken whispered. "We are just hungry and tired." "I know," Jace said. "We are working on it. Neri is synthesizing more protein packs. We will get through this." Roken nodded slowly, then stepped back. The tension in the room broke. Vexa walked over to Jace. She did not say anything, but she rested her hand on his shoulder. Her grip was tight. It was a silent thank you. Later that night, the ship was quiet. The refugees were asleep. Jace sat in the observation blister, looking out at the swirling gas of the nebula. Vexa joined him. She brought 2 cups of tea. She sat on the floor beside his wheelchair, her long legs stretched out, her tails curled around her, like a blanket. "You handled Roken well," Vexa said. "He is scared," Jace said. "Fear turns into anger very quickly. I know the feeling." "He was right about one thing," Vexa said, tracing the rim of her cup. "We are homeless. The Starhound cannot hold us all forever. And we cannot go back to the Kitsari homeworld. The council there is too afraid of the Circle to accept us. They would hand us back." "We will find a place," Jace said. "Once we clear our names. Once Marrow is gone." "And after that?" Vexa asked. She turned to look at him. What happens to us, Jace, you and me? Neri. Sorry. Jace looked at her. What do you mean, the contract? Vexa said. 5 years. Refund not allowed. Husband required. But if we win, the requirement ends. You will be a hero. You can go back to the guild. You can have your life back. A human life. With a human wife, perhaps. Jace felt a pang in his chest. He realized he had not thought about a human life in months. The idea of a quiet apartment on a station with a normal job and a normal partner felt alien to him. I do not think I fit in that box anymore, Jace said. I have been changed, Vexa. And not just the resonance. We have changed you, Vexa said, a hint of sadness in her voice. We dragged you into our war. I jumped, Jace corrected. He reached down and took her hand. Her fur was soft, her claws retracted. Vexa, look at me. Do you really think I could walk away from this, from Neri, blowing up the toaster? From Sorry force-feeding me green sludge from you? We are difficult, Vexa said. You are impossible, Jace smiled. But you are my family. I told you in the storm. I chose you. That choice does not expire when the shooting stops. Vexa looked at their joined hands. A family, she repeated the word, tasting it. It is a strange concept for us. Kitsari are usually solitary or pack-bonded for survival. Love is a luxury. Then we will be luxurious, Jace said. The door hissed open, shattering the moment. Neri stuck her head in, grinning like a maniac. Are we having a serious emotional moment? She asked. Because Sari says Jace needs his neural therapy, and if he skips it to flirt, she will sedate him. We are coming, Vexa stood up, pulling Jace's wheelchair back from the window. She leaned down and whispered in his ear, her breath warm against his skin. Do not think this conversation is over, husband. I expect a full renegotiation of terms. Jace shivered pleasantly. Yes, ma'am. The neural therapy was less romantic. It involved Jace sitting in a dark room with electrodes taped to his temples, while Sari guided him through meditation exercises. Reach for the center, Sari's voice guided him. Do not force the resonance. Let it float to you. It is dark, Jace murmured. I cannot see the lines. They are there, Sari promised. The damage to your cortex is healing. You just need to remember how to look without eyes. Jace breathed in. He focused on the silence in his head. He tried to find the hum. For an hour, there was nothing. Just the frustration of a blind man trying to read. Then a spark. It was faint like a distant star. A tiny vibration in the base of his skull. Jace latched onto it. He pulled. The vision hit him not as a map of the stars, but as a memory. The smell of rain, mud. He was small, a child. Maybe 7 years old. He was crying. His knee was scraped. A shadow fell over him. He looked up. A Kitsari stood there. She was old, her fur graying at the muzzle. She had 3 tails, which was rare. Most Kitsari he had seen in the slums had only one. She knelt down. Her eyes were kind. She reached out a hand with 6 fingers, and touched his forehead. The world exploded into light. He felt the universe for the first time. He felt the turn of the planet. He felt the gravity of the moon. Bridge, child, the old Kitsari whispered. Her voice was like dry leaves. The path is broken. You will mend it. Who are you? The child Jace asked. I am Ashari, she said. And one day, you will carry my heart. Jace gasped and jerked awake, ripping the electrodes off his head. Jace, Sari, was by his side instantly. What happened? Your heart rate spiked. Jace stared at the wall, his chest heaving. The memory was fading, but the feeling remained. The touch on his forehead. The name. Ashari, Jace whispered. Sari froze. She dropped the datapad she was holding. It clattered to the floor. Where did you hear that name? Sari asked. Her voice was trembling. I remembered it, Jace said, looking at her. I met her. When I was a boy. In the refugee camps on Athila. She touched me. She did something to my head. Sari stared at him, her mouth slightly open. Jace Ashari was our mother. The silence in the room was absolute. Your mother, Jace repeated. But she died. Vexa said she died in the Meridian Purges. She did, Sari said. Years ago. But she was a high seer, a genetic weaver. She had the ability to manipulate resonance in others. Sari backed away, looking at Jace as if seeing him for the first time. She touched you, Sari whispered. She initiated you. Jace, your ability. The resonance. It is not a mutation. It is not an accident. What are you saying? I am saying you were made, Sari said. Or at least awakened. By her. Before Jace could process this, the ship's intercom blared. It was Vexa. Jace, Sari to the bridge. Now. Incoming transmission. Priority 1. Jace limped onto the bridge, refusing the wheelchair. He felt stronger, though the memory of Ashari still swirled in his mind like smoke. Neri was at the comm station, looking unusually serious. Vexa stood before the main screen. It is Mira Holt, Vexa said, and she is not alone. The screen flickered to life. Mira was there, but standing next to her was a man in a heavy, ornate coat. He looked like a pirate king who had decided to run for office. Captain Rowan, the man rumbled. I am Valerius Thorn, High Speaker of the Independent Captains Guild. I know who you are, Jay said. Thorn was a legend. He controlled the shipping lanes that the Meridian Circle couldn't touch. You have caused quite a stir, boy, Thorn said. The Red Core data is ugly, but it is not enough. The Meridian Circle is claiming the footage is doctored. They are claiming you are a deep fake simulation created by anarchists. I am real enough, Jay said. Prove it, Thorn said. In 3 days, the Galactic Concordance is holding an emergency summit at Aurora Spire Station. The Meridian Circle will be there to present their evidence of your terrorism. They are going to demand a galaxy-wide purge of all Kitsari and non-sanctioned navigators. A purge, Vexa growled. Unless someone walks into that chamber and throws the truth in their faces, Mira Holt interjected. Jace, we have the raw data from the Red Core, but data can be debated. We need witnesses. We need the victims. You want us to go to the Aurora Spire, Nairi squeaked. That is the most heavily fortified station in the core systems. It is suicide again. It is the only way, Thorn said. I can get you close. My guild will create a blockade, a distraction. But you have to get the Starhound to the docking spire. You have to walk onto that floor and let the galaxy see what they did to your crew. Jace looked at Vexa, then at Sari and Neri. If we go, Jace said, there is no coming back. We win or we are executed. We are already dead men walking, Vexa said. I say we go out screaming. Jace nodded. He turned back to the screen. Thorn, get your ships ready, Jace said. The Starhound is coming in. Good hunting, Captain. Thorn grinned and cut the feed. Jace turned to his crew. Nairi, I need maximum power to the shields. I do not care if you have to bypass the safety protocols. Way ahead of you, boss, Neri said, already typing. Sorry, get the refugees ready. Not to fight, but to speak. Choose the ones who are strong enough to testify. I will, Sari said softly. She looked at Jace, her eyes lingering on his forehead, where her mother had touched him. We have much to talk about, Jace. But first we survive. Vexa, Jace said. Plotting the course, Vexa said. She brought up the map of Aurora Spire. It was a fortress of glass and steel floating in the golden light of a binary star system. It will be a gauntlet. Fighters, defense platforms, capital ships. We have faced worse, Jace lied. They hadn't. Jace, Vexa said quietly, stepping closer so the others couldn't hear. Your resonance, is it back? It is coming back, Jace said. But it feels different, deeper. Good, Vexa said. Because to get through that blockade, you are going to need to do more than fly. You are going to need to sing. Jace looked at his hands. He felt the phantom touch of the old Kitsari. Bridge child. He was part of a design he did not yet understand. But he knew one thing Marrow was going to pay. "Set course," Jace ordered. "Full burn." The Starhound's echo hung in the dark, a tiny speck against the vastness of space. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation. Jace sat in the pilot's chair. He closed his eyes. He reached out for the hum. It was there, stronger than before. But now he heard other things. He heard the whispers of the refugees in the hold, a chorus of fear and hope. He heard the heartbeat of the ship. And beneath it all, he heard a song of 3 tales of a mother's sacrifice, and of a destiny written in the stars long before he was born. He opened his eyes. The stars outside blurred into streaks of light. "Let's go start a revolution," Jace said. The ship vanished into hyperspace, racing toward the final judgment. Aurora Spire Station looked less like a military outpost and more like a cathedral built to worship capitalism. It was a vertical city of glass and white alloy piercing the nebula clouds of the core systems. Around it, a blockade of independent guild ships formed a jagged wall of steel, their cannons pointed outward, daring the Meridian Circle fleet to make a move. Jace Rowan stood in the airlock of the Starhound's Echo. He adjusted the collar of his dress uniform, a relic from his days in the Merchant Guild that Neri had miraculously unstained and patched. "You look respectable," Vexa said, stepping up behind him. She wore a long, flowing robe of deep crimson, embroidered with golden thread. It was the ceremonial garb of a Kitsari High Matriarch, something she had synthesized just for this occasion. Almost human. "I am terrified," Jace admitted, checking his cuffs. "Flying into a black hole was easier. At least physics is predictable. Politicians are not." "We have the truth," Vexa said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "And we have the data." Neri and Sari joined them. Neri was fidgeting, wearing a formal engineer's tunic that looked 2 sizes too big, while Sari looked serene in white. They were carrying the data core from the Red Core facility, a heavy, pulsating cube of black metal. "Time to go," Jace said. "Thorn and Mira are waiting." They walked down the ramp. The docking bay was packed with press drones, security guards, and onlookers. Flashes of light exploded around them as the traitor navigator and his Red Fox wives stepped onto the neutral ground. The Grand Assembly Hall was a cavernous amphitheater. Representatives from 200 colonies sat in tiered rows. In the center, a floating platform served as the stage for the accused and the accuser. Director Cade Marrow stood on the right side of the platform. He looked calm, confident, and utterly in control. He nodded politely as Jace and the Kitsari took their places on the left. High Speaker Valerius Thorn banged his gavel, a sound that echoed like a gunshot. "This emergency session is convened," Thorn boomed. "We are here to address the allegations of crimes against sapients leveled against the Meridian Circle and the countercharges of terrorism against Captain Jace Rowan." Marrow stepped forward first. He did not shout. He spoke with the weary patience of a parent scolding a child. "Distinguished delegates," Marrow began, "we live in a dangerous galaxy. The void is full of chaos. To survive, humanity needs order. The Meridian Circle provides that order. Yes, we have made difficult choices. Yes, we have studied the unique biology of the Kitsari species. But we did so to harness a power that could solve our energy crisis forever." He pointed a finger at Jace. "And who accuses us, a disgraced navigator who led his own convoy to destruction 5 years ago. A man who has now allied himself with unstable biological weapons. He calls it liberation. I call it anarchy. If you let these creatures roam free, if you let navigators like Rowan operate without oversight, no ship will be safe." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. Marrow was good. He played on their fear. Jace stepped forward. He felt small under the lights. "I am not a politician," Jace said, his voice amplified by the floating microphones. "I am a pilot, And pilots know that you can only fly blind for so long before you hit a wall. He gestured to Neri, who placed the data core on the central pedestal. This is the server from the Red Core facility, Jace said. It contains logs of 3,412 Kitsari, who were tortured, drained, and discarded. It contains the blueprints for a fleet of ships powered by living minds. Director Marrow talks about order, but his order is built on a foundation of bones. Fabricated, Marrow shouted, losing his cool for a fraction of a second. That data is corrupted. Then let us read it together, Jace said. Live. He placed his hand on the interface panel of the data core. Do not do it, Jace, Marrow warned, his eyes widening. You do not know what is in there. It will burn your mind. I am willing to take that risk, Jace said. He closed his eyes. Resonate. The connection was instant. But it was not like the ship. It was not a stream. It was an ocean. Jace gasped as the memories of the Red Core flooded the hall. Holographic projectors around the room lit up, displaying what Jace was seeing. The delegates gasped as images of the tanks, the wires, and the dying Kitsari filled the air. But then, the stream pulled Jace deeper, past the logs, past the torture, down into the source code of the black box. He fell into a memory that was not his own. The smell of rain on hot metal. A refugee camp on the moon of Othila. 20 years ago. Jace saw himself. A scrawny boy of 7 stealing an apple from a crate. He was caught. A guard raised a baton to strike him. A hand stopped the baton. A hand with 6 fingers and red fur. It was an elder Kitsari. She had 3 tails that flickered like candle flames. Her eyes were old and sad. Let him go, Kitsari said. The guard retreated. Kitsari knelt before the boy. Jace felt the memory shift. He was the boy again. He looked into her golden eyes. Who are you? The boy asked. I am a Shari, she whispered. And I have been looking for you, little spark. She placed her hand on his forehead. It was not just a touch. It was a surgical insertion of psychic energy. Jace felt his mind expand, his neural pathways, being rewritten, widened, prepared. Why are you doing this? The boy cried. Because the bridge is broken, Ashari said. My daughters, Vexa Nirisari, they will need an anchor. They will need someone who is not of our blood, but who can carry our song. You are the vessel, child. You are the husband by design. The memory swirled. Time jumped forward. 15 years later. The bridge of the flagship. The massacre. Jace stood over the table holding the stylus. He felt a presence in his mind. A familiar presence. Ashari. She was not in the room. She was plugged into the Meridian mainframe miles away, dying as she fought the machine. Do not sign it, her voice whispered in his skull. Run. But the Meridian conditioning on Jace was too strong. He signed. Ashari screamed in the void. She could not stop the gravity well. Marrow had won. The convoy was doomed. But she had one move left. Jace watched in horror as the memory showed the truth. Ashari used the last of her life force to twist the gravity well. She did not save the convoy. She sacrificed 3 ships to create a push wave that shoved Jace's ship out of the kill zone. She killed hundreds to save one. Live, Ashari's dying thought echoed. Live, forget, and find the ship. Find my daughters. Be their anchor. Avenge us. The connection snapped. Jace fell to his knees on the platform. The hall was silent. The holographic images faded, leaving only the echo of Ashari's final scream hanging in the air. Jace looked up. His face was wet with tears. He looked at Vexa. Vexa stood frozen. She had seen it too. The whole hall had seen it. My mother, Vexa whispered. She made you. Jace looked at his hands. He felt sick. He felt used. I was a project, Jace said, his voice hollow. I am not a navigator. I am a genetic experiment. I was designed to find you, to save you. Marrow laughed. It was a desperate, manic sound. You see, Marrow shouted, pointing at Jace. "He is not human. He is a biological sleeper agent. Even his heroism is just programming the Kitsari which bred him to destroy us." The crowd began to murmur again. Fear was creeping back in. A human who had been altered by aliens, it was a primal terror. Jace stayed on his knees. He felt the weight of the destiny that had been forced upon him. He realized that every choice he thought he had made, buying the ship, saving the wives, fighting the storm, had been laid out for him 20 years ago. "Refund not allowed," Jace whispered. "Husband required." It wasn't a joke. It was a command code. "Jace," Vexa's voice cut through the noise. He looked up. She was walking toward him. She did not look angry. She looked heartbroken, but her eyes were clear. "Stand up," she said. "I am a puppet, Vexa," Jace said. "Ashari killed those people to save me, so I could be your anchor. My life is a lie." "Your origin is a lie," Vexa said, reaching him. She knelt down, ignoring the gasps of the crowd. She took his face in her hands. "But your choices, the pain you felt, the times you bled for us, was that programming, or was that you?" Jace looked into her eyes. He felt the bond. It was frayed, shaken, but it was there. He remembered the storm. He remembered choosing to hold the clamps open even when he thought he would die. Ashari had designed him to survive. But in the red core, he had chosen to sacrifice himself. He had broken the design. Jace stood up. He pulled Vexa up with him. He turned to face the assembly. He turned to face Marrow. "You are right, Director," Jace said. His voice was steady now. "I was designed. I was altered. I am a bridge between two species built by a desperate mother who wanted to save her children from you." Jace stepped forward, his resonance flaring so strong that the lights in the hall flickered. "But here is the thing about design," Jace said. "It only sets the potential. It does not dictate the soul." He pointed at the data core. "Ashari saved me. Yes. She sacrificed others to do it. That is a tragedy I will carry forever. But she did it because you gave her no choice. You built a world where the only way to survive was to become a monster." Jace looked up at the delegates. "We are done with that world. I am not standing here because of a program. I am standing here because I looked at the faces of the people you enslaved, and I decided that their freedom was worth more than my safety. That is not alien programming. That is humanity." He took a deep breath. "The Meridian Circle believes that power comes from control, from turning people into machines. I tell you now, power comes from choice. I choose to be the anchor. I choose to protect the Kitsari. Not because I was made for it, but because it is right." Jace turned to Marrow. "And you, Cade, you have no choices left." Marrow snarled and reached for a weapon concealed in his jacket. "Security!" Thorn bellowed from the high seat. But Vexa was faster. She did not use a weapon. She used the bond. She grabbed Jace's hand. Neri and Sari grabbed his shoulders. "Push," Vexa thought. Jace channeled the resonance. He focused it, not on a ship, but on the gravity around Marrow. He snapped his fingers. A localized gravity pulse hit the director. Marrow was slammed into the floor, as if an invisible anvil had dropped on him. The weapon clattered away. He lay there, pinned by the weight of his own crimes. "Director Cade Marrow," Thorn announced, his voice grim. "You are under arrest for crimes against sapience, illegal biological modification, and mass murder. The Meridian Circle's charter is hereby suspended pending a full tribunal." The guards swarmed the platform. Marrow was dragged away screaming about traitors and mongrels. The hall erupted. Not in fear, but in applause. Jace sagged against Vexa. He was exhausted. The resonance faded, leaving him empty, but light. "We did it," Sari whispered, crying softly. "We did it," Nairi cheered, hugging Jace from behind, so hard his ribs cracked. Vexa did not smile. She looked at Jace with a gaze that stripped him bare. "We have much to discuss, husband," she said. The celebrations lasted for a week. The Starhound's echo became a pilgrimage site. Journalists, politicians, and curious civilians flocked to see the ship that had broken the Meridian Circle. But Jace stayed in his quarters. He needed quiet. On the seventh night, he called a meeting. Not in the tactical room, but in the ship's garden, a small hydroponic bay that Sari had filled with bioluminescent plants. Vexa, Neri, and Sari arrived. They looked anxious. Jace stood in the center of the room. He held a datapad in his hand. "This," Jace said, holding up the pad, "is the dissolution of the Anchor Pact. I had Mira draw it up." The three sisters went still. "You are leaving," Neri asked, her voice small. "The contract was based on a lie," Jace said. "Or at least a manipulation. Ashari bound us together before we ever met. She forced you to need me, and she forced me to be capable of helping you." Jace walked over to Vexa. He handed her the pad. "You are free," Jace said. "The Meridian Circle is gone. The new laws protect you. You do not need an anchor to survive anymore. You can hire a normal navigator. You can go home." Vexa looked at the pad. Then she looked at Jace. "Is that what you want?" she asked. "It does not matter what I want," Jace said. "It matters that you have a choice. For the first time in your lives, you have a choice." Vexa stared at him for a long moment. Then she dropped the pad. It clattered onto the metal deck. She stepped on it, crushing the glass screen. "I choose," Vexa said. She lowered herself to one knee. Jace's eyes widened. He knew this gesture. He had seen it in the archives. It was the Kitsari vow of fealty, of devotion. Neri dropped to one knee beside her sister. Then Sari. Three golden-eyed women kneeling before a human man in a garden of glowing flowers. "Ashari may have built the bridge," Vexa said, looking up at him. "She may have forged the steel of your mind. But she did not make you kind. She did not make you brave. She did not make you make me tea when I was working late or hold Nairi when she had nightmares about the lab." Vexa reached out and took Jace's hand. "The design brought us to the door, Jace. But you walked through it. I do not want a refund. I do not want a new navigator." "I want my husband," Vexa whispered. Jace felt a lump in his throat the size of a moon. He slowly sank to his knees, so he was eye level with them. "I am damaged goods," Jace warned. "I come with a lot of baggage and a savior complex. We are refugees with trust issues and tales that shed everywhere." Neri grinned through tears. "We are a perfect match." "Then," Jace said, his voice trembling, "I accept the renewal of the bond. Not as an anchor, not as a guardian." He looked at each of them. "As Jace, just Jace." "Just Jace is enough," Sari smiled. They leaned in. The four of them huddled together, foreheads touching. The resonance flared, but it wasn't a tool this time. It was a song, a harmony of four broken notes, making a perfect chord. Epilogue. 1 year later. The Starhound's echo sat in orbit around Athila. It did not look like a hauler anymore. It looked like a beacon. New docking rings had been added to the hull to accommodate the shuttles coming and going. Jace stood on the observation deck watching a small transport ship detach and burn for the surface. "Another graduating class?" Vexa asked, joining him. She held a mug of tea in one hand and a datapad in the other. 12 of them, Jace said. 8 humans, 4 Kitsari, all resonants, all ready to fly. The Starhound was no longer a warship. It was a school. The Rowan Institute for Resonant Navigation. It was the first place in the galaxy where humans and Kitsari trained together to harness the power of the void without chains. "They are good kids," Jace said. "Better than I was." "They have better teachers," Vexa noted. Jace turned to look at her. She looked peaceful. The edge of war had softened, though her eyes were still sharp. "Do you ever think about her?" Jace asked. Ashari, Vexa, looked out at the stars. "Every day. I used to hate her for leaving us. Then I hated her for using you. Now, now, now I think she was the bravest of us all, Vexa said. She played a game against the devil with a deck of blank cards, and she won. She paid a high price, Jace said, touching the faint scar on his forehead. Freedom is expensive, Vexa said. That is why we must ensure no one else has to pay for it. She turned to him and smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached her eyes. Are you coming? Headmaster Nairi has recalibrated the simulation deck. She claims she has created a scenario you cannot beat. Jace laughed. She says that every week, and every week I beat it. She added meteors this time, Vexa warned. On fire, and space sharks. Space sharks, Jace raised an eyebrow. That is scientifically inaccurate. Tell that to Nairi, Vexa said, taking his arm. They walked away from the window arm in arm, heading back into the warmth of the ship. Behind them, the stars burned cold and bright. But inside the Starhound's echo, there was light, there was noise, and there was the chaotic, beautiful sound of a family that had built a home out of the void. Jace Rowan was no longer a ghost. He was a husband. He was a teacher. And for the first time in 100 years of wandering, he knew exactly where he was going. He was home.